Welcome to the Halftime Podcast, a 15-minute show where two panellists with opposing views must discuss why theirs is the best, and you get to decide the winner.
Hello, I'm Danny Cook, and welcome to another episode of Halftime Cuppa's Halftime Podcast. On today's show, I'm joined by two fantastic guests in the form of the Football Forecast's Liam Drury. Welcome, Liam.
Hello, I'm glad to be here again. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So Liam was on last week's show, which funnily enough is coming out next week. It's just the way these things work out. But you'll see why in terms of today's podcast, why this one is out this week and next week's one is out a little bit later on. And joining Liam, we have our very own Charlie Pumfrey. Hello, Charlie.
Good afternoon, Danny. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Good afternoon to you too.
What date this? I do a good job on these of dating when they're being recorded.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for that. But how are you enjoying yourself on this snow day? Should we say?
Oh, it's fantastic, Danny. You've dated it even further.
Yeah,
fantastic. I love the snow. Lots of people hate it, but it's one of those.
It's just one of those.
Like
okay. Fair enough. Anyway, on today's show, both of these chaps are going to be giving their views on what happens next for Glenn Tamplin and Billericay. And unlike, obviously, some of the previous episodes, they're not going to be going so much head-to-head. It's going to be just an all-out debate. Let's just discuss what on earth is going on at Billericay right now. So, Liam Drury, do you want to kick us off? Was Glenn Tamplin right to resign?
Well, so it's all publicity in the end, isn't it? Just one big publicity act, really. Like you say, you're going to sack yourself, which you can't do, but then he has a meeting with himself to reappoint himself while he is still in charge. It doesn't make sense at the end of the day. It's all for publicity.
Why couldn't he sack himself?
Because he's the owner. Like, you resign. Can you sack yourself? No.
I don't know. I'm probably sure you can somewhere. So, you're as a non-league connoisseur like yourself, then Liam. What's your views? Do you think it's a bit silly, or is there logic behind him kind of resigning / sacking himself, but then appointing himself a little bit later on?
No, there's no logic behind it. It's all just silly, really. It's like it's one big joke to him, really. Like, yes, he's put his money into the club. Yes, he's tried to move them forward, but at the end of the day, he's doing it in the wrong way, and he's bringing too much publicity to the club, in my opinion.
Okay, and on to Charlie now. One of the saying goes that there's no such thing as bad publicity. How do you think that applies to what's gone on here with Glenn Tamplin and Billericay?
He's done a really good job, hasn't he? He's done a fantastic job of getting the name out there. Because now, anytime you think of, I think they're probably one of the first names you think of now when you think lower league. You think, oh, Billericay, even though they're God knows how many tiers below the actual football league. He's done a really good job of getting that name out there by being a bit of an idiot. I think he's actually done a really good job. People won't remember that in 6 months' time. I mean, you look at where they are in the table. It's bizarre when you actually look at it on footballing terms. In their division, they're 1 point clear with 7 games in hand on the team below them. And it's like, okay, yeah, you definitely deserve to be sacked. Looking at that, okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. I think it came at a bit of a strange time. Obviously, ahead of their I believe it was their quarterfinal, not semi-final. Sorry, the FA Trophy against Wealdstone, and it just seemed quite a strange one. But as you say, whatever he's done, it's clearly brought attention. Go on, Liam.
They've hit poor form. I think they've lost 3 in their last 4. Including Saturday, and I think he just wasn't happy with the way it was going. I think he's trying to just put more publicity on the club by saying he's going to sack himself.
But
And
is that
yeah,
not?
because he said that. Then
Yeah.
there's that question about whether the players would even want him in charge because they went out and lost the game, didn't they? Yeah, and they're good players who have played Champions League finals and that, whatever.
Yeah, that's very true. And then with that argument in mind, for him to then reappoint himself as interim manager, or however you want to dress it up, is that not a little bit confusing then, Charlie? That his players have essentially lost him his job, but he's got his job back again. What's going on?
Well, it's such a weird situation because nowhere else that I know of in the football pyramid do you have a manager who can't really be sacked unless someone else buys the club. I mean, unless you're like Mick McCarthy at Ipswich, that's a whole different conversation.
It's a whole different conversation, that one, yeah.
It's bizarre to see this sort of thing happening at any level. But I mean, oh God, non-league is such a crazy place. If something weird's going to happen, it's going to happen down there. Absolutely. I mean, you hear stories every other week of something crazy going on somewhere else.
Yeah, and what kind of message does this send out, Charlie, about, I suppose, non-league football in general and Billericay as a club?
Well, I think Billericay themselves have been a bit... I think they're frowned upon by the rest of the non-league, aren't they? Because they have just had an entrepreneur's come in, a millionaire's come in, pumped a load of money in, brought in ex-Premier League players, and gone, that'll be enough, that'll win the league. And unfortunately, it looks like it might win the league. And they're just worried that that'll set the wrong precedent for other teams in the league to go and overextend themselves to do the same.
And Liam, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do, but sadly, I don't see this story ending well with Billericay. I do think they will go bust in 5 years' time if they're not careful. Because if they find their level if they find their level before they hit the football league, then players will leave. Or if Glenn Tamplin just get unhappy, he's the type that will pull his money out of the business. And if Billericay lose part of their money, then they will go bust. Players won't get paid, and then it could end badly, in my opinion.
Okay, and how far do you think that they could go by that point? You're saying they'll find their level. Do you think that they could maybe break it into sort of the professional football mark and getting into the football league, or is that too much of a push?
I think there'd be National League knocking on the playoffs by that time, because stepping up to the National League South it's hard, but now it's not hard at the same time, because usually teams that come up into National League South, then they usually have one good season when they first get promoted, and then they sort of tail off towards in the second season, which Billericay might do as well. When they might go against stereotype, and they might go back-to-back promotions. You don't really know yet until they do get promoted.
Fair point. Okay, Charlie, let's move on to his reappointment as such. Was he right to reappoint himself, in your opinion?
I mean, it kind of exposes what his mindset was a little too early. If he'd have done it quietly, given the assistant manager a few games and then come back in a couple of weeks, it might not have got the coverage it's got. But I mean, I imagine he's the sort of person that loves control, and having someone else turn up and be sat in his seat almost, and him having to be assistant manager, that was never going to end well. I don't think he was ever going to leave it alone, was he?
But just to play sort of devil's advocate here and try and stick up for Tamplin here, is it almost refreshing to see an owner actually care so much? Because you get obviously all these owners in the Premier League and the higher divisions, the elite level of football, and they're almost faceless. You almost never see them get involved or anything like that. I understand this is non-league, but is it not maybe refreshing to see that Tamplin wants to be there? He wants to muck in. He wants to get things right for the club and push them forward. What's your thoughts on that, Charlie?
I don't know. I think that's a bit of a little bit of a blind comment to what else is going on in non-league. I think there are plenty of owners in non-league that really are passionate about their club, and actually, I'd say it takes more at that level to want to be involved and want to drive, keep that club going. I mean, I can understand where you're coming from in terms of he's got a very hands-on approach, as opposed to I imagine a lot of people are just worried about survival. He's worried actually about making sure they thrive. I can understand that, but I mean, I know lots of situations in non-league where owners care massively, and it is their life to make sure their club keeps going. I mean, to be fair, even in high-profile cases, you look at the Salford case, where 5 really high-profile characters went in there and bought a percentage of the club, and then a very rich individual got involved as well. I think it's actually what Glenn Tamplin's doing isn't really the same. I don't think it's sustainable. And I agree with Liam actually that there's a recipe for disaster with what's going on at Billericay.
Okay, moving on to Liam now. How would you feel as a Billericay fan right now? Because there's lots of press obviously focused on Tamplin himself and the club, but what about the fans?
They're probably not used to it because obviously they wouldn't have got much press and it's probably since they founded really, and this is their first real chance for us to see what they're like. And the thing with Tamplin is that he's a very, very controversial character. Like, he's said stuff in the media and on Twitter which arguably no one should say. Like, he told an opposition fan to go jump off a train or jump off a multi-story building, which is wrong, and that just brings back publicity into the club and people. I think that's really what set all this off. Him saying stuff to opposition fans, and then them sort of, and then opposition fans seen that and said he's not that great a person. But then Billericay fans might have seen him in a different light. They might have seen him on a match day and seen how passionate he is, whereas others probably haven't.
Okay. Next question for you then, Liam, is where does Tamplin go from here? What happens next?
Well, he said well, in that statement Billericay released when Tamplin was reappointed, that he's carrying on until the end of the season, and then his assistant's going to take over. But I could see that changing at the end of the season. I could see Tamplin deciding to stay on as manager next season as well, and beyond. Wouldn't surprise me.
And why is that?
Because he's that sort of person who says stuff for publicity, and then he'll think, "Oh, look, this will get me more publicity if I stay on next season." So it won't really surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if he did let his assistant take charge next season, but if he steps into the assistant manager's role.
Okay, interesting stuff there. Let's cross over to Charlie now. Where do Billericay as a club go from here?
Well, I think, like I say, it's pretty obvious they're going to go up this year, barring a massive implosion, which this might cause. I think they'll go up, and then it's difficult because when they get into the next division, they've actually still got players that could compete at that level. I mean, players that I felt like Jake Robinson, who used to play for Brighton, actually, just looking through their team a minute ago. Players that they've got players that have played at higher levels than the league above. But it's just about continuing that growth, and I think if they keep pumping money into it, then that can happen. But unfortunately, I think the bubble's going to go pop at some point.
Yeah, interesting. And do you agree that, like Liam suggested, that bubble might go pop just outside the Football League, or do you think they could sneak in?
It's difficult because the thing with the non-leagues is that there aren't actually that many opportunities to move up through the leagues each season. I mean, there's only 2 positions, and I know they've added more playoff places, which is ridiculous and a whole other conversation. But it's so difficult to tell with non-league.
Okay. Well, that was a full-time whistle. Thank you very much there, Charlie. You just squeezed that one in. Just about. Really interesting discussion there, actually. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I found that really interesting to hear your views on what's going on there. This is kind of the reason why this podcast is going to come out this week rather than next week, is because it's so time sensitive, and it's a topic that we all are really interested in at the moment. But anyway, let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Be sure to check out the various pieces of content we have across our site, as well as our football predictor and our football forums at halftimecuppa.com. Really important to check them out because we've had plenty of debates on there about Tamplin and Billericay already. let's have a quick shout out to today's panelists, Liam, Drury, and Charlie Pumfrey. Liam, how can we follow you on social media?
It's at Liam Drury 4 on Twitter.
Brilliant. And what's your football forecast Twitter handle for non-league?
Oh, at TFF non-league.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Liam. And Charlie, if you're there.
Yeah. You can find me at Charlie Pumfrey on Twitter.
Excellent. And my Twitter is at DannyCook1996. I've been your host, Danny Cook, and you've been listening to the Halftime Podcast. Thank you very much, Liam and Charlie, for coming on once again. And we hope to see you again in a future episode. Goodbye.
Bye.